Good morning, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us with our webinar this morning, Secrets of Successful Content Marketing. My name is Craig Stouffer with Pinpoint, and I'm joined today by Bob Bly, noted internet strategist, copywriter, prolific writer, and all-around great educator. I believe this is now our 9th webinar today with Bob, and we always get great, fantastic results and feedback from folks. So for today's attendees, we have some special offers. Bob, do you want to tell folks about your special offer?
I'm offering 4 of my marketing reports on internet marketing and direct marketing that I sell on my website for $29 each. But if you click on the link on the slide, you can have them for free.
So just sort of the 60 seconds or less about Pinpoint. So Pinpoint's #1 ranked email marketing by top SEOs. We really focus on email marketing for businesses. Lots of features, less cost. You know, it's a great platform for you to promote your great content. And with that, Bob, let me hand it over to you. Tell us a little bit more about you. I think he's got a pretty fantastic background here and certainly a great background relative to content marketing. So, Bob, I'm going to hand it over to you at this point and move the cursor down in that little corner for you. There you go.
I have been a copywriter since the late 70s, and 10 years ago, I got into selling products on the internet. I have written 80 traditionally published books with McGraw-Hill, John Wiley, and other New York City publishing houses. I've been on a lot of TV and radio shows, including the CBS show Hard Copy, and I've also been featured in print media, including the National Enquirer, but that's another story. My clients include IBM, Medical Economics, AT&T, BOC Gases, and dozens of other firms. And I help clients with email marketing, copy, direct marketing, and more. So here's what we want to cover today. Understanding the difference between content and copy. What makes killer content, great content, that your audience will love and share. The benefits of different types of content and when to use them. And how to use content to boost your direct marketing strategies, your direct marketing results in multiple channels. Why is content marketing a good idea? And I like these 2 quotes. Kent Nerburn said, "The true measure of your education is not what you know, but how you share what you know with others. And when you share what you know with others, they think you're smart. They think you're the expert, and that's what we want. People would rather buy from experts than the average run-of-the-mill supplier or vendor." I like also George Bernard Shaw's quote. He says, "If I have an apple and you have an apple and we exchange apples, then you and I still have one apple. But if you exchange content, an idea, and I have an idea, and we exchange those ideas, then each of us will have 2 ideas. So you come out ahead of the game." People ask, what is the difference between content versus copy? Content informs and copy sells. Sometimes the line between them is blurred, but that's the basic definition. Here's an example. Let's say I was writing a copy for a health newsletter, which is something I do. Content, I would write in my promotion, "Apples help prevent cancer." You read that and you've learned something useful. If I was writing copy to sell my newsletter, I would write a delicious fruit you can find in your refrigerator that can help prevent cancer. That way, I would require, or the prospect, the reader, would have to subscribe to my newsletter to get the information, and I'd be making a sale. So that's the difference. 5 things that make killer content, and these are not the only 5 things, but these are 5 things that work very well. #1, people love how-to tips. And here's one I ran in my e-newsletter that was very popular with my readers, called "Give Your Writing the Breath Test." And it said short sentences are easier to read than long sentences, but how long is too long for a sentence? To determine maximum sentence length, use the breath test. Without taking in a gulp of air, and with just the amount of air you ordinarily have in your lungs, read the sentence aloud at a normal conversational speed and volume. If you run out of breath before you get to the end of the sentence, it's too long. Solution: break it into 2 sentences at the point where a new idea is introduced. And people absolutely love that because it's practical and it's actionable. It gives you something to do. So that's an ideal tip. How-to tips, and if they're actionable, the better. News. People like news. Here was one I did for a company that made surveying equipment, and they were trying to convince their prospects that they ought to gear up for more construction and buy more surveying equipment. And it was the new infrastructure boom market under the American Recovery Act and Reinvestment Act of 2009, which was an act of government that stimulated or was supposed to stimulate a boom in construction. So news, people want to know what's news, and they want your interpretation of it. In other words, what does it mean to them? Ideas. If you can give someone a new idea, they will be grateful. This is a report I wrote years ago for Bulova that was promoting its watches as business gifts. And tip number 1, which I found in a business book, I loved. It says, plan to spend 1/5 to 1/3 of your business gift budget at times other than Christmas. The reason is business gifts are most appreciated when given at unexpected moments. Experience prove it. If you give your prospect a Christmas gift, they're overwhelmed with gifts from vendors or partners, and they're expecting it, and they don't appreciate it as much. Plus, it creates an expectation you're going to do it every year. Now you're committed. But if you give it at odd times, and I do this if I find something that I know someone would like, I send it. For example, I had a client that loved World War II biplanes. And I was in Barnes & Noble, and there's a beautiful coffee table book for sale for $5 on the subject, and I bought it and sent it to him. And he loved it. Expert advice. Expert advice can be from you if you're an expert in the topic, or you can interview somebody who is an expert. And this guy, Paul Karasik, is an expert in sales. And he came up with a way to introduce yourself in a networking situation. Instead of saying, hi, my name is Fred Jones, I'm a divorce lawyer, or I'm an investment counselor, he gave us a formula, which you can read here, that says, you know how. Lots of divorced women are overwhelmed with the responsibility of dealing with their finances. The second part is, what I do is provide safe investment opportunities so they can stop worrying and get their lives back. So there's a benefit in it. Much more effective than the typical, oh, I'm a financial planner, in which nobody's interested in. Tie in with current events. This is a press release I distributed to the media to promote some content I had written. This was not during this recession. This was during the recession of 1990. And I wrote a booklet called Recession-Proof Business Strategies, a piece of content, and this was pre-internet, so it was a physical booklet. And I sent out a press release. It basically says, new booklet reveals 14 proven strategies for keeping business booming in a bust economy. And I actually sold the booklet, something you normally wouldn't do, but I sold it so I wouldn't get a lot of freebie seekers because I had printed it and I had paid for it. And we sent this out to about 200 newspapers, editors, business editors, and business magazines, and got 20 of them to run articles on it, and sold over 4,000 of these at $9 a piece. Plus, I got several consulting assignments and at least 2 speaking engagements. So tie in with current events. The 3 R's of content optimization. Content is like fruit. It spoils with age. It spoils over time. So you have to update it and make it current. And the 3 R's will let you do that. Number one, reorganize. All you do is take existing content and restructure it in a way that is more useful to your prospects. Maybe you have given a webinar like this. You can take this, make a transcript out of it, and create a PDF download, a report. Because some people like to take in their information via audio, like we're doing, but some people are readers. They like print. So you can reorganize it. The second of the 3 R's of content optimization is you can rewrite it. And this is especially useful if the content is dated or you've used it too much and it's old hat. And then the third R, which is the painful one, is you retire it. Every piece of content has a shelf life. You can't use the same content indefinitely. For example, I had a book I had written for John Wiley & Sons called Create the Perfect Sales Piece on how to create sales brochures. And I still have a lot of copies of it in my basement, but I don't use it anymore because people are not interested in creating, for the most part, paper brochures. So the shelf life is over. This is something that irked me. I was on Facebook, and this guy who is a marketing consultant wrote on Facebook, copywriting tip. Most of your customers don't really give a crap about you, your products, services, your goals and dreams. What they care about is how you can help them. They're too busy trying to figure out how to overcome their challenges. And yes, that's true, but I have heard that, and you probably have 8 gazillion times before. So I looked at this and I said, this is not worth posting. It's old stuff. So it's, to me, bad content. And it's too general. It's not actionable. So how do you avoid it? The key to writing great content, and the sample I just read is bad content, is to either present a new idea, which is difficult, but sometimes they come along, or communicate an old idea in a fresh, new, and compelling way, which is challenging but easier. If you don't present a new idea or present an old idea in a fresh and compelling way, you are wasting the reader's time by stating the old ideas in a stale way that they've already heard. So why even bother? The answer is you should not. I'm not going to read this whole slide, but this is a breakdown of content marketing. There was a survey of business-to-business marketers, and it said how much of these various forums and channels for content marketing do you use? Social media was at the top of the list. Articles on your website, e-newsletters, blogs, case studies, videos, a very growing medium, articles on other people's websites, in-person events, white papers, webinars or webcasts like we're doing now, research reports, microsites on specific topics, infographics, a relatively new development and very popular. I don't know what branded content tools are, but mobile content, content designed for iPhones, e-books, print magazines. Some companies still produce printed magazines and distribute them. Books, by that I mean printed books, virtual conferences where instead of having a live event, people get together over a telephone link. Podcasts, which seem to be fading, licensed or syndicated content. Some people call this content curation, where you get content from other sources and distribute it to your audience. Mobile apps, digital magazines, and printed newsletters, which have fallen out of favor. The problem with social media leading the list is that came up with a study, and they analyzed data from 72 million customers shopping on 86 different retail sites, and they found that the most effective methods of acquiring new customers were organic search, cost per click, and email marketing. The worst were Facebook and Twitter. So as much as Facebook and Twitter are popular with B2B marketers, they seem to be not very effective at getting new customers. E-newsletter ads, I have found, work very well. Target Marketing Magazine, which covers the direct response field, has an issue, an E-Zine. They're a print magazine, but they also have an e-newsletter every day during the week. And I took an ad in that, and I ran for 5 days in a row, and I offered a free ebook called the Business to Business Marketing Handbook. Headline was New Free Ebook Reveals 30-plus years of tested B2B marketing secrets. And if you clicked on the link, more, you would go to a landing page where you could download the ebook. And this brought in, I forget the number, but I think it was, I'm not sure of the number of leads. It was 100 or it's 500, but it brought in download requests at a cost of $10 per download. Now, 90% of the people who downloaded it were just seeking a freebie, but 10% were ideal customers for my copywriting services, and I got at least 2 or 3 really good projects out of it. So I've read elsewhere people say e-newsletter ads don't work. I have found the opposite. I have found that they do. And here's the landing page. This is a typical design for the landing page. The left column is about the premium. It shows a picture of it. It has bullet points so you know what you're getting in it. And the right column is what the prospect fills in to get the ebook, and he has a choice. He can check a box to get the ebook. He can check another box to get information on my services, and he can check a third box to get an estimate on a copywriting project. Widgets are a good source of, are very popular content and a good way to capture leads. For example, in this little widget, free DM, which is on my website, it's on the home page. It says free DM ROI calculator. This is a little tool that contains content, and the content is the formula of how to calculate break even for direct mail. And the formula is built into the calculator. So if you click on the calculator, you say, boy, what response rate do I need to break even on my direct mail? So when you click on the calculator, you fill in this information about your selling, the price of the product, net revenues per order, the cost and postage per mail piece, printing costs per 1,000, and you fill out these fields and you click print result. It tells you the number of orders you need to break even on your mailing and the response rate you need to break even on your mailing. And we've gotten over 3,000 names added to my database using this tool. Ads, print ads. Print ads still work. I write quite a number of print ads, and they are effective in getting leads, and content works very well in print ads. Here's an ad for a guy that would help wealthier people set up a charitable foundation, and he uses a content approach. New free special report reveals little-known strategy millionaires use to keep wealth in their hands and out of Uncle Sam's. And then to further encourage you to get the content, he's got a coupon. Now, people will protest. They'll say, no one fills out a coupon. It doesn't matter. The coupon is a visual indicator to the person looking at the ad that, oh, this is one of those ads where you get something free. And so coupons still increase response anywhere from 10 to 15%. And some people do use the coupon, but fewer than in the old days. Most people will want to call or go online. But it does work. Print ads offering content are effective and do work. Okay, I'm trying to... Here's a direct mail piece that also uses content. He offers a report. Basically what this company does is help you manage the life cycle of your electronic equipment, such as fax machines, scanners, and most prevalent PCs. Because as they get older, you want to replace them with new ones, and you have to dispose of the old ones, and it's not a simple thing. You just can't throw them in the garbage. For example, you have to data wipe all the sensitive information off the hard drive, which this company does. You have to dispose of it in a approved landfill and keep a record of what you've done. If you throw it away elsewhere and someone finds it and they see the serial number and trace it back to you, you're in trouble. So they offered a free white paper on managing the life cycle of electronic assets. And notice how the reply card is designed to let you get this free information every way from Sunday. There was a famous copywriter in the 20th century, Bill Jamie, and that was his statement. He says, if you're going to say free, say it every way from Sunday. So look at this. There's a blue border at top. Send me your free white paper. And the title is Maximizing Revenues and Mitigating Liabilities from Electronic Asset Disposition. Because they do it in a legal way, they mitigate liabilities. They can also recover a lot of materials, scrap, gold, other materials, and make money getting rid of these things. Then there's a picture of the free report and putting a picture of your free giveaway, whether it's a report or a CD or a disc, increases response. And I always put a little caption next to it, yours free, so there's no mistaking that it's free. And then the checkbox, the first checkbox, is send me your free white paper. So this card is designed to maximize requests of the free content. Here's another one. We did a letter for IBM. This is older. And it says to link your AS400's LANs for maximum performance, you need the right connection, and that's where IBM can help. And we mailed the letter, and it did okay, but then we added a subhead. Ask for your free IBM guide, the 30-minute AS400 networking handbook. And handbook is a word that has high perceived value. Connecting your remote and branch office LANs. And that significantly increased the response we got to this piece. Here's an interesting case. We were selling an information product. We were selling a loose leaf service, and that is a format that is kind of fading away. But if you remember in the old days, you could order loose leaf services, which were big binders, 3-ring binders, filled with content, and it also included a supplemental newsletter you'd get usually 6 times a year. In this case, this was a loose leaf reference work on managing Novell NetWare networks. And it came with a disk that had some nifty little software programs for managing the Novell NetWare networks. So the original envelope said, manage your Novell NetWare networks more efficiently and easy. See inside for details on the special time-limited offer. And we got the idea and said, let's give away some free content and add that yours free at the top. 5 powerful programs to help you manage your Novell NetWare network. And the disc was only $1. The expensive part was the binder. So we said in the letter inside, get this, try it. If you don't like it, send back the binder, but tear out the envelope with the disc and keep it. You get 5 free programs. And doing this doubled the response to the mailing. So people love to get free content. Here's another example. This was done, I believe, by Bacon's Publicity Checker. It is one of the news release services. And instead of just talking about their service, send us your press release and we will distribute it. They also created free content, often known or also known as a bait piece, because it's bait to hook the prospect. And they wrote the email about that, not so much their services. Their services, if you look at the left column, they don't even get into it until the third paragraph that says Bacon's Express Monitoring Service provides timely updates throughout the day delivered to your online portal, and it tells you it monitors magazines and TV shows and daily programs to let you know when you've gotten some PR. But the whole thing is designed to get you to ask for this perfect pitch on a very timely topic, how to get heard in a 24/7 news cycle, because they rented a list of prospects, marketing people, but they want to get those people on their list. And what better way to offer free content? You have to opt into their list to get this bait piece. So what are the benefits of content marketing? I think there are 6. Number 1, it sets the specs. If you write a booklet called 10 Things to Look For when choosing a reciprocating valve, let's say you're writing to chemical engineers, if they read that, now they're going to, when they shop for valves, they're going to look for those 10 things. Your competitors only have 5 or 6 or 7 of them. You've made sure you have all 10, so it sets the specs for buying your category of product. Number 2, it makes the prospect beholden. You've given them something of value. This is a principle in Robert Cialdini's book, Influence, reciprocity. If you give somebody something, they feel a little more obligated to pay attention to you. It doesn't obligate them to buy your product, but they feel like they ought to read your email or they ought to read your white paper because you did them a favor. Offering a bait piece, free content, generates more inquiries than not doing it. Number 4, when you publish how-to information on your niche or topic, it establishes you as the expert, and people would rather buy from experts than general run-of-the-mill vendors. Number 5, it educates the market, so they again become convinced that your service approach or your technology is the right way to go, and it drives sales. We use the term bait piece in content marketing because a bait piece is a free content offer that is used to hook the prospect. Now, ordinary copy is just that hook, but when you offer a free bait piece, you've added a worm to the hook and you catch more fish or more prospects. And here's the role of the bait piece in the sales cycle. You run your promotion and you include in it a bait piece offer. The prospect either requests the bait piece or doesn't. If they don't, they go back up and are in line to get your next promotion. If they do, you fulfill the request of the bait piece and including information on your product sheets or brochures or whatever you have, videos, DVDs. Then you follow up, and either they're going to purchase or not purchase. And if they don't purchase right away, You put them in a cycle for periodic follow-up, and if they purchase, you've closed the sale. Here's the formula, and this was a full-page ad in DM News that I did for my copywriting services, and I offered 7 or 8 free offers. 7 ways to double your direct mail response. Yours free when you act now. And one was a tape, and one was a critique of their current piece, and one was access to a library of articles on my website. One was a booklet I had done, that recession-proof business strategies. And my formula is lead-generating marketing, like this ad, plus the bait piece offer equals 2 times the regular response rate. When you offer a bait piece, you'll usually double or better the response rate you would get without it. There are a variety of content topics that you can choose. You can have selection guides that tell how to buy a product, how to do something, surveys of best practices, case studies, methodologies for doing things, implementation guide, how do I implement this new AS400 computer in my data center, controversy, people like contrarian opinions. So if everyone is saying use X, you want to say use Y. Consumer awareness guides, application information, and calculating ROI and benefit. White paper content formats. Here's a cover of a white paper that was very effective, and we gave it a dramatic name in the headline and then a clear description in the subhead. So the headline was the death of passwords, which was an attention grabber. And then the subhead explained it, 3 easy steps to increasing user productivity, enhancing authentication, and lowering password reset costs with enterprise single sign-on. Do white papers work? There have been a number of surveys. Marketing Sherpa, Diana Huff did a survey, Kate Maddox did a survey, and the bottom line is that white papers, content, is still effective. Some people say white papers are fading, but they still work. And the second bullet, 9 out of 10 respondents, IT professionals, responding to the survey, said content has an impact on their preference of technology vendor. So content works. White papers, the term white papers is a little tired. People say there are too many white papers. So you can solve this by calling it something else. If it's aimed at senior management, call it an executive briefing. If it's instructions, call it a manual. If it's how to specify or choose a product, call it a buyer's guide, a selection guide. If it's got information or tips or technical information, call it a special report. If it's just got some quick tips on one side of a sheet of paper, call it a tip sheet. If it's a very heavy technical or research data, as is used in the medical field aimed at doctors, call it a monograph. If you've printed it and it's available in print, you've saddle stitched it, call it a booklet. And if you have a multi-page document that you folded, you can call it a pamphlet. Titles for your white paper or your other content pieces, just some examples. List work, the top 7 security problems of 802.11 wireless networks. That works very well. Active verbs, managing large Unix data centers. Why Six Sigma doesn't work, or why Six Sigma works. A colon, 2-part headline, defending the remote office, colon, which virtual private network technology is best. And how to, always effective, how to prevent machine parts from failing prematurely. Here is the death of passwords again. It shouldn't be in there twice. Here's an outline you can follow for white papers with content, a front cover and title, a table of contents, an executive summary. I like a section that says a look at the problem. What does this information solve? The body describes the solution. You have conclusions and then a call to action. Other formats. Here's a guide. This is the one for Bulova, a simple guide to running a profit-building business gift program. We called it a guide, not a white paper. E-books. This is an e-book I published that I sell, but I also give it away to potential copywriting clients. It's called The World's Best Kept Copywriting Secrets, and it has a $29 price tag. Reportalog is a brochure that doesn't just present product or service information, but it presents some useful information, often in sidebars. In this case, information about getting competitive intelligence for lawyers. Special reports, how to double your response rates at half the cost. These are reports I produce. Notice I put a cover price on it, so it has a higher perceived value, and that's something I recommend. Can't do it on a white paper, because white papers are known to be free. You can do it on a report. And what I do to solidify that, I actually post all my reports that I use as freebies on my website in a shopping cart, and people actually buy them. Therefore, I say in my copy, hey, this isn't just made up to be $29. We actually sell it for that, so it's really worth that. Booklets used to be popular, 4x9-inch saddle stitch posted, multi-page booklets. This is one I did for Studebaker Worthington. You can do them in electronic form, but the size of the 4x9-inch has an appeal. So booklets, either electronic or physical. A rack brochure. Here was something in my local bank, and it looks like it's about their service, but it reads like content, a guide to preventing fraud and identity theft. You think when you read this, you're going to learn something useful, so it's effective. Here again, this is from a print ad for an company that makes awnings for patios and decks, and they say, please send me in the coupon your free Shade Ideas catalog. They use value-added word. They don't just say catalog. They say ideas catalog. So again, it sounds like something you want and has value. Planning and targeting your content. On the horizontal of this table, we have job functions, CEO, CFO, end user, technical buyer. On the vertical, we have where in the sales cycle are we? Lead generation, fulfillment, RFP, and closing the sale. And then we provide or create different content to solve different problems. For example, if you look at the star, it says cost-benefit ROI analysis. So when the CFO requests information on the product, we fulfill with a white paper that helps them determine, is this investment in equipment going to pay back, and how long will it take to pay back? So you can look at this matrix and figure out what content do I need to achieve what marketing objective with what audience. Here's an easy way to develop content. If you haven't done much yet, take this sheet and write in the headline 10 tips for blank, and blank is whatever you do. 10 tips for meeting Six Sigma requirements. And then just list 10 things that you know about it that you have to do, and then under each, put a paragraph or two elaborating, and you've just created a nice bait piece that you can use, nothing complicated. The next one also works. The next one also works is 7 questions about blank and one good answer to each. A friend of mine, Rich Armstrong, who's also a freelance copywriter like me, did one called 7 Questions About Hiring a Freelance Copy and One Good Answer to Each. And he wrote down the 7 questions in the Q's area of this that he was asked most often, and then put his answer. Very simple format to do. Easy. The content writing process, I start with source materials, collect as much as I can on the product or the topic. I then have questions after reviewing the source material that I ask a subject matter expert and get answers. Then I go to write and I produce a draft. Then we have a technical review to make sure everything I said is correct. And if not, we go back and rewrite. And if yes, then we give it to the manager for their approval, which is more on a high level. And if they approve it, we go into design and reproduction of the piece. And that's the process I follow for content writing. Some of the materials, and I won't read the slide because we're running a little tight on time, but this is a list of what material I gather from my clients. I like, in particular, competitors' content on the same topic. And you can find that online. I mean, your client or your company may have it, but if you go to a source where they syndicate white papers, like bitpipe.com, you'll find a lot of white papers on a similar topic to yours, and that can give you an idea how to outline yours. White papers from your company, tear sheets of ads, PowerPoint presentations, I almost always get. I look thoroughly at the company's website. If they have audios or videos, I watch them and listen to them and take notes. Sometimes they have a PR department, and the press releases are very helpful. And then there are other materials that I've listed here. Often of the ones I've listed, the last two, past issues of the company newsletter and reading the company blog, are very helpful. Visuals add credibility. I see too many special reports and white papers that are all text. Especially technical audiences like visuals, and they add credibility. When you put a visual like this, it looks like you know what you're talking about. Even if the reader can't 100% follow it, they get the impression that, hey, this is legitimate stuff, and these guys know what they're talking about. This is just an explanation of how you use visuals. A photograph or illustration shows what something looks like. A map shows where it's located. An exploded view with the pieces spread out shows how it's put together. A schematic shows how it works or is organized. A graph, an XY graph, shows how one quantity varies as a function of another, i.e. temperature changing with pressure. Pie charts show proportions and percentages. Bar charts comparisons between quantities. And a table is a good way to present a body of related information. Here's an example of photos. That was for the company Chasm that did that electronic asset disposition, and they wanted to show how they grind the parts of the computer and recover the copper, the aluminum, and the steel, and what could be more convincing than a photo. Maps, again, show where things are where things are located, and they can show the locations of the company. They used a diagram to express their benefits and how they're related. No e-waste, low cost, security, and I think this was an interesting benefits of life cycle management, how they manage the life cycle of electronic equipment. Bar charts, they wanted to show when they processed the computer and scrapped it, what did they get out of it? They got so much dust, so much steel, so much plastic, and you could see the comparison. This was a table in that death of passwords white paper, and we're trying to explain authentication factors, and there are 3. Something you know, something you have, or something you are. Something you know is a password. Something you have is a token or a smart card. And something you are is your voice print or your biometric scan of your eyeball. And this helped make clear what the options are. So I want to thank you for joining us. I believe Craig has some questions from the audience. And Craig, if you're ready, I'd be happy to answer a few. I know we have about 7 minutes left.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Bob, and thanks for everybody in here. We've had quite a few questions. Here I pulled through a couple. The first one I think would be useful would be, I think this is an interesting one, Bob. What's the one biggest mistake that people make in content marketing that most of us might overlook? Is there something you can think of that?
Yeah, I can think of it right away. The biggest thing is to publish something that 18 other companies have already published. Again, people are looking for original ideas or twists on old ideas. And you should look and see what's out there and figure, what can I do differently? What can I add to it that's new? And so, you know, Google, if you publish this on your website, you know that Google hates duplicate content. So you don't want to take someone else's and sort of massage it and rewrite it a little. You want something fresh.
So that's super. I think in summary, either new content, new idea, or a fresh perspective on a current thought.
Exactly.
Super. Okay. So here's another interesting one. I think the answer to this is going to vary depending on the type of content. The question is, does long, detailed content work on the web, or is it better to stick to 300 to 500 word pieces? And I'm going to modify that a little bit, Bob, and say, apply that question first to a blog entry, right? So if somebody's using blogging for their content, and then I think you covered throughout the rest of the presentation, but touch a little bit on your other types of content that you might do.
I think you have to take that question on a medium or channel by channel basis. Mm-hmm. You're right. Blog posts and even web pages on websites come in around 300 words, ideally. If you're sending an e-newsletter, you can do 700 or 800 words. If you're sending a white paper, you could do a couple of thousand words, but the trend today is towards shorter white papers. One way you can get a lot of text in is to do a video. People will watch, amazingly, people will watch long videos. What's interesting is that in the old days of B2B marketing, people would run an ad in a trade journal, and the prospect would respond, and they'd get a huge brochure in the mail with all the technical details, and then the salesperson would call and say, let's meet, and we'll start the selling process. Now, the content, the prospect meets with the salesperson much later in the buying cycle. By the time they get to the salesperson, they've done 80% of their research, and they've done it in a variety of media, from tweets to Facebook groups to LinkedIn discussion groups to white papers to articles to e-newsletters. So the copy in total may be this long, but in each piece it's shorter.
You just sort of summarized what I was going to ask and clarify. So in the good old days, a couple of years ago, you might have created a white paper that might have been 10, 15 pages of very dense content. And so it sounds like your recommendation in summary, in addition to looking at different channels to distribute that content, your website, blog, Facebook, etc., it sounds like your recommendation would be to break that into smaller, digestible chunks that are maybe less dense. Is one component. So in the good old days, they would send one, big fat document that candidly, I don't know about you, but I would get those and I wouldn't read very much. wouldn't get too far to read through them. But if you break it down into maybe 2 or 3 less dense, so maybe the same content, but not as dense, larger print, and so forth. Maybe a few more pictures to make it a little more attractive, right?
I agree with that 100%.
Yeah, yeah, that's what we've actually started doing in some of our content also, and get better feedback. Again, I know for me personally, I think for each of us, if we put ourselves in our customers' or recipients' shoes, right, you can kind of think, again, I know, I hate getting a 14-page document. I can't digest that much at one shot. So,
however, there is one exception. That is not practiced that much today, but used to be practiced in the old days, and I still believe it works today. If you run an ad that says, we wrote the book on steam generators, you could produce a 50 to 80-page thin paperback book, and people like that because it I don't know that they even read it all, but they are impressed that you published and wrote a book on the topic. And that is an underused technique today, but I still see it now and then.
Yeah, yeah, excellent point. Okay. One or two questions. We still have a couple minutes if you can. Bob, how do you differentiate between important and urgent in copy? What should precede? I mean, you kind of covered that, but if you maybe go back and point that out a little bit further, reinforce that.
Well, important is two things. It's stuff you feel you want the prospect to know so they will decide in favor of buying your product. And the second part of important is the stuff the prospect feels they need to know to make a buying decision. Urgency is something that is often, but not always, artificially added based on the theorem that a decision deferred is a decision never made, and you want the prospect to act faster. For example, I did a mailing for a company that analyzed video data using a supercomputer, and their selling process was to show you how well it worked. You'd bring in a short video of your data, and they would analyze it for you. And I said to them, how long does that take? And they said, well, we need to put an engineer on it, and it takes a couple of hours. So in my letter, the PS, I said, hey, the one problem with this offer is we got to put an engineer on it. We don't have that many engineers, and it takes 2 or 3 hours. So if you want this done on a timely basis, you better do it now. And a real reason for acting now usually works better than a made-up reason.
Yeah, and I'm going to point out, too, I think as you just said, there's urgency and scarcity, right? I mean, so there's urgency like you have a time sensitivity to do something, right? And the other is a scarcity of resource.
Exactly. Although the thing we used to do in the old days, we'd say, oh, we send for our special report. We only printed so many, and once they're gone, we're not going to reprint it. Obviously, with PDF documents, you can't do that anymore.
And if you got an order for a few thousand, you'd find a way to print them.
Yes, you would.
So, great. We have just another minute or two here. Let me see. How do you – I have two questions. So in the last one, I'll tell you what, I'll read two questions, and then you pick one. The first is, because I don't know if these are how answerable these are, but they're interesting. The first is, I get this all the time, how do you dumb down content without making it too dumb? So that's the first one to think about for a few seconds. And the other is, how do you create engaging content to scale, right? How do I build this, and how do I create more? So
I wish I had time to do both, but I'll do the first one.
We can do both if you want, but start
okay.
with one.
It's not so much you dumb down. You make it easier to read. Like I got a document today from a client that was 10 pages of dense prose, and there was no organization to it. What you do is you find an organizational scheme, maybe 7 steps to doing X, and you use simpler words, shorter words, short paragraphs, plenty of space between the paragraphs so it's not one dense block of text, and that usually works. And if you use a technical term, even though some of the readers may know it, you put a dash after it and then a half a sentence of explanation so that the person who is not as technical is not lost. And those are some of the techniques.
Yeah, that's great. And I'm going to add to that, too, to say, so some perhaps competitors, but other companies that I've seen as a marketer, I think, do a really good job with what you just mentioned. One in particular is HubSpot, right? So HubSpot, marketing automation product, they've created a tremendous amount of content, obviously. But if you look at the content, it's not super dense prose, like you said. It's spread out, and it's easy to look at, easy to digest, as we spoke a little bit earlier, and includes definitions, right? They also classify their content as being beginner, intermediate, and advanced. So, there are some thoughts on that. Well, great. Hey, if you, Bob, if you want to tackle the last one. How do you do that at scale? And then from that, we'll close off. I'm sorry. Give me the question one more time. Yep. The question basically was, how do you create engaging content at scale? How do you do this and do a lot of it? How do you create good content, good quality content, and do it to scale? Well, this sounds like a simplistic answer, but if content is important to you, you hire content writers and put them to work. For example, I was interviewed by a major software company, and the marketing director wanted an article with me on the blog. I found out he didn't interview me. He's got someone under him who is works on his blog full time. And that's how you scale, because if you do it all yourself, you'll never have time to do anything else. Yep. That's an excellent point. We've had quite a bit of success in that, also doing the same thing. So I absolutely would say being able to find the right supplier, if you will, or partner, if you will take the time to understand your business, your product, etc., and then create the content is definitely a great way to scale the business. Or scale the content marketing. Again, thank you very much, everybody, for joining us, and thanks, Bob. With that, thanks. My pleasure.